Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined as always by Nick Sutherland, the Sultan of Still, from Myndfit. Nico, how are you and how fit is your mind feeling today?
My mind's feeling optimal. It's feeling
Optimal.
optimal. It's in that space between that, in that wonderful, healthy space between tension and flaccidity. It's just in that sweet spot there. It's not too tight. It's not too loose.
Just a semi-mind, just floating in the middle.
Half.
Half a year and a half up. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be. The balance, one thing we've brought this up on the show many times, but one thing that, a lot of clients that I see, especially ones with addiction, is that balance piece and the pinging between extremes that all of us do to some degree. And that space in the middle that you're describing there, that optimal, half a mind space.
It's a
sweet spot. It's very foreign. It was very foreign to me for many, many years, and it's foreign to a lot of people. And it's kind of like, the extremes are exciting. They give us the cortisol and the adrenaline and all of that kind of thing.
Dopamine in there.
Oh yeah, but the middle is the place to be. That lovely little middle of the seesaw.
Well, I know the sweet spot on the golf club's foreign to you, but that's why we use.
Excuse me.
Are we going to mention the beard yet? Are we?
Let's mention the beard for those that aren't joining us on YouTube. I've grown a beard, and as soon as we jumped on Zoom, because me and Nick haven't seen each other for a couple of weeks, he had to drink in this experience that is my beard, and I'm
still drinking it in. I'm just sipping.
Very happy with it. Yeah, take your time. There's a lot there. So
there's a lot going on.
Don't get drunk.
Are you going to are you at the barber's in the barber chair, getting the hot towel and the proper?
I didn't have the hot towel, but I did have that experience last week. We just went up to Brisbane for a few days. We had a lovely networking event up there.
Did you pop in to say g'day and see me?
How close are you to Brisbane, really?
6 hours.
Okay. I'll just pop in. Just ducking out, dear. Just going to see Nick back in the day. And so the whole reason the beard grew is because Tommy Brave, my young son, it was birthday about a week and a half ago. Shout out Tommy Brave, the big five. And I give him a bath every night. And then the way I do is I have like a little beard trimmer thing that's like at the shortest setting. And then maybe twice a week, I'm never cleanly shaven, but I like a bit of stubble. And so a couple of times a week while he's having a bath, I'll just do that. And then he just suggested, he goes, Dad, can you grow a beard? And I'm like, okay. And so it started, and then I get the positive reinforcement because Melissa loves Hassan with a beard. There's some lumberjack vibe.
Now we're going into a bit of nighttime talkback radio here.
Dr. Feelgood.
This is a bit of after dark sort of stuff going on.
After dark woke blokes. And so, I thought I'd go with it because it always goes through, because I go through that phase where I like the idea of it, but then there's that kind of little itchy week or two there when it gets to a certain length that I'm not into, but I powered through that. And then, last week I thought I'd get a haircut before we go up to Brisbane. And I told the barber, I'm like, well, I've got a beard going on now. So can you, sort it out? And so he did some lines for me. He faded it so that bit's kind of shorter, and I'm just digging it. And I was waiting. I thought I could see in the mirror the other night a couple of greys on the chin, which I'm waiting for. I'm looking forward to going for a silver.
I've got them. They actually grow quicker than the black ones. So
they seem to be the longer ones of the beard. Isn't that interesting?
It's interesting.
I have this one. I have this one eyebrow hair that I have to trim like maybe once a week. It's on the end of this eyebrow, and it grows like in a week. It grows to like that long. It's just unbelievable. It's just such a go-getter.
It's you've also got earlobe hair, and every time I see you've got these little sprouts on the not the earlobes, but the middle bits in your ears.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because sometimes when the light comb them, I thought you were going to say cut them, comb them. You put a bit of product on there. And so sometimes if the light catches it right, I can see all the little hairs on the outside of my ear. And so I'll try and trim them off. But I'll have to let my barber know, can you get stuck into my ear? Because, you don't hairy ears. That's not
we're not hobbits.
No, it's not desirable, I don't think. So I've got
No.
the beard. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, it's
I,
working
I
for you. It's working
I
for you.
tell you, I was at the Cove, the local pub here. I go there with Tommy sometimes. We're at a big table. We do Lego and have dinner, and he was talking about my beard. He goes, "Dad, I want you to grow it down to your, down to your belly button." And I'm like, probably not going to do that. I'm like, I've grown a long beard before, and so then I went into the archives trying to find, like in my mid-20s, late 20s or so, I grew a beard, like decent
Yeah.
thatch for many, many months. And I was going back trying to find the photos of it. But in the process, if there was a photo, he's like, "Dad, what's that?" And there was me at the gym. And that was when I was like right into my gym phase in my late 20s. Tommy, it's like just turned 5. I was like, "Oh, Dad, you were jacked back in the day." I'm like, thanks. Then I found the beard picture and then put the phone away. And he's sitting there doing the Lego and he's like, he stops doing Lego and goes, "Dad, I just can't believe how jacked you were back in the day. What happened?" I'm like, I'm still going okay. I might be as big, but I'm still going okay.
Father time caught up with me, son. Father time.
Yeah.
Catching up with all of us.
Very, very funny.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
yeah,
Well, the beard's here to stay, hopefully. So
definitely for the midterm. Yeah, we'll see how we go.
yeah,
And yeah, we had a wonderful trip up to Brisbane. One of our students up there, they did one in Melbourne, but they organised a networking event. So just our practitioners and students up in Brisbane. And
yep.
it was bloody awesome. Like, I don't know, like
What was awesome about it?
you don't realise some of the things you miss till they're gone. And we obviously
Yeah, well,
went.
you're
We
quite disconnected. You're all online now. So is
Yeah,
it was it there was the connecting with people in
hundred
person?
percent, 100%.
Yeah,
It was just getting around people. Also, it was really heartwarming just to see all of these people getting on like a house on fire themselves.
yeah.
And I had multiple
Why is that a
people
good thing? Why is that a because the house on fire is not great? Were they all? It's an
getting on like
interesting.
getting on like a house on fire. A house on fire, getting on like yeah. That's we might need to look that one up. Let us
Yeah,
know,
don't
people,
want
if you
to.
know the.
Oh, it was great because they're all burning to the ground. It was fun
Yeah,
to stand there
yeah.
and
No
watch
one
them.
wants their house on fire unless it's an
Oh,
insurance job or something. And so, watching them all connect and everything, and a few people at the end came up and they're like, "Oh, we're just thanks for what you've created. You've created that. There's like no competition here, and we love just how you share everything so openly and honestly." And it was one of those things, we've spoken about when people are like, "Oh, you guys are pretty open and honest about stuff," and we're like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know any other
yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah,
And so it makes me, I'm like, why would there be competition here? That's an odd thing to think. But I guess in
yeah,
other circles there is. So I think, yeah, you're right. We moved online. Then COVID happened. Everyone got very used to Zoom stuff and all that kind of thing. And I've done a few speaking gigs over the last, few years, but it's all, on Zoom and that kind of thing. And I have fun doing it.
yeah.
But being there in front of a room of people, being able to look at them all in the eyes, feed off their energy, it's just a different experience.
Yeah, the energy is completely different. Um, yeah, so I'm experiencing the same thing. Being up here, 40 acres, just me and the doggos. Well, Em goes to work in town every day. I'm really, so when I went back to Vic for a week and caught up with clients in person, just being able to give them a hug or just being there, within close proximity to them, just to, that vibe. It's just it's different. Online and in person both have pros and cons, I suppose. But
Yeah.
so yeah, we're moving back in April next year.
April. Oh, we've got a date.
We're going to date, yes. So we're
I'm going to mark it in the calendar. And I'm going to start some
mark it in
sort
the
of some
calendar.
sort of countdown. I'm going to have the calendar on the wall and do a big red X as each day passes.
Is it going to be the final countdown? You got to
It's
sing
the
it every day.
final countdown.
You
Yeah, well, I'll
got
set
to
that
have
as
a
my alarm.
you got to have a shot of whiskey every morning.
I do that
It's
already.
like the advent calendar. Um, yeah, so we'll be back. We're just pondering what to do with this place now because it's taken so much more of everything than we possibly imagined or considered
Mm.
or could foresee. So it's energy. It's I can't do it on my own. I need another set of arms and legs. Um, I can't run a business, be in a business, do all the other things, and look after 40 acres. So yeah, it's too much for me. Um, financially, we sort of got it to a point where we can live here, but it's the running of retreats is what it was for. So we're looking at, do we get investors in, just to get it to that stage and co-host retreats with people or something. So yeah, it's just it's really nice. As I said before, that balance point. It's just there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's just being sort of here, present in the moment with it, not forcing it, just observing, just feeling your way through it. No fight, flight, no tension, and it's so it's all okay. It's all
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
it can get really interesting when we've put so much time, energy, and money into a certain thing, and we, I guess, have this some form of attachment. It can be healthy and unhealthy attachment, but we have some sort of attachment to it. And I think it's really good that you're in that calm space, because a lot of people get a bit funny about that. I remember it's making me think. I've thought of this for years, but there's this. I used to read this study. It was called the IKEA effect. And yeah, you'll get where I'm going in a minute. And
Yeah. All I'm
basically,
thinking is Swedish meatballs. That's all I'm thinking now,
Swedish.
so.
Oh God, I would love some Swedish meatballs right now.
Too.
Just the sauce in my beard, you know. I'm at the point now where I'm going to have to go look at beard oils today. Is that? Can you give me any advice on beard oils?
It's coconut oil.
Coconut oil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I remember one day years ago.
Don't ask for it if you don't want it.
I'm going to go off on many tangents today. I can just feel it. I remember many years ago, and I read this thing. It's good to coconut oil like once a month or something, just all your hair and your face and everything, and just let the moisture seep in, because I've got quite dry skin by nature. And I remember I did that many years ago, and then my mate came around, like randomly popped in. He was just driving past, and he opens the door, and the first thing he said, he goes, "Looks like you've just been born." This goo all over my head and my face. And IKEA. So the IKEA effect is a study that was done where obviously IKEA, you buy your stuff, comes in a flat pack, you have to assemble it yourself. And so people were taken, and I can't remember the nuts and bolts, pun intended, of the study, but they would take people randomly and have them value different items of furniture, basically. And at the end of the day, it makes sense. But people who actually had built the thing themselves valued that piece of furniture far more than they would if they didn't build it. And I remember doing a video years ago on this, because it's I was relating it back to like relationships and that kind of thing. And, people feel like I've put so much time and energy into this other person that I'll stay in it, even though I probably shouldn't, just because I put so much time and energy into it. I think it's called the sunk cost fallacy as well, as something that we go into. But it sounds like you're definitely whenever someone is experiencing that effect, there's normally some sort of anxiety, there's some sort of fear, they're feeling very, very unbalanced and unstable. But it sounds like even though you've put fucking a lot of work and everything into that property, you're in kind of a space of let's see what happens next with it.
If it's meant to be, it'll be. If it comes, let it come. If it goes, let it go.
So
we spoke before about attachments, like healthy and unhealthy attachments. And what were you just talking about then?
Heaps of shit.
It's hard to keep up with you today. And I was talking to clients about, there's the biological clock that ticks in women. I'm getting close to a certain age, children, etc. And she was really sort of struggling with that. And I'm like, well, that's a primal instinct. That's an attachment you can't really touch. We talk about surrendering and letting go. That's not an ego attachment. So all you can do with that sort of attachment is trust that you will or you won't have children. And that was a really interesting conversation to have with a woman. She's like, oh, and offering that to her. I'm like, you can't let go of the attachment. It's a primal, innate, biological thing that's occurring. So we're not trying to let go of those attachments. They're the ones we have to manage, but the ones that we do need to deal with are the ego-driven attachments. And so you've got this primal, I've got this desire to procreate and to keep the species going and everything. But if the ego gets involved and goes, "Yeah, I have to have one," it means the world to me. If I don't have one, then I'm less than a woman. All of that stuff, all that neuroses is the stuff you need to work on. So
yeah, that'll make me complete. Of I'll be able to have one like A, B, and C do, and
yeah,
all that. Yeah,
yeah, it'll create this identity, and that's where it becomes problematic for people. So yeah, we got um, the property ticking on. We'll be back in April, and yeah, we went back in Vic, and that was really interesting. I jotted it down. I could see this because up here it's very rural. You go into town, there's like a choice of three places to eat. So she's pretty minimalistic compared to Melbourne culture and the peninsula and the wineries and everything. So I noticed there was a sense of deficiency. I ate a lot of food down there. I was like, I want Chinese, I want this, I want that. And I just banh mi roll. I need a banh mi. I was just going to town, and I just observed myself as I was doing it, even in the airport, just before we flew back. I'm like, what's in the airport food court that I can't get my hands on up there? And there's this real sense of deficiency. I reckon I put on 5 kilos down there. It was just
trying to make up for the restriction.
Yeah, or just I can't get it there. I have to have it now, and it was really funny. But yeah, we went down so we sent M's son off to Canada for the next chapter of his life, and he's just broke his collarbone 2 weeks into it.
Oh no!
Day before he was meant to go on the mountain snowboarding in Whistler. So yeah, we've got that to assist him with. And then it was M's mum's birthday, and then it was M's grandma's funeral. And it was interesting to observe people in suffering and in grief, and grief has a really funny effect on people. It sort of brings out a different version of them sometimes. Not everyone, but yeah, we tend to lose our minds a little bit in grief. I remember I got the day or 2 days after I found out my dad passed away. I think it was the day after. I asked my girlfriend at the time to marry me, and that was my ex-wife. And I read, a couple of years later that that's a thing because you've lost someone. Part of you goes trying to form another bond, and I was like, fuck, well, that cost me a fair bit, didn't
it? Oh, we learn learning experience.
Yeah. So I had my own experience with that, but yeah. So we're up there, and it just got me thinking about death. And there's been a lot of clients lately that have struggled with this fear of death, and we've had lots of amazing conversations about it. I keep referring back to the Stoics, memento mori. They'd meditate on their death every day. Because they understood that until you were free from your fear of death, you weren't free to live your life. So, yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just there's just a lot going on.
And so, what did you notice? Particularly, were you just reflecting on your own experience at the funeral, or you were kind of
no, just no, just a couple of people I could tell were affected. And it wasn't just in that emotional, sad sort of way. It altered them, and they got quite destructive, and obviously they're in suffering. They're projecting their suffering. So yeah, it was everything is revealing. When life happens, it reveals things, and it just revealed a few impurities and certain natures in people.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I get very emotional at funerals, and it's not so much at the person passing like this. For example, the last one I went to was my uncle's one, and we were never particularly close. I wouldn't have spoken to him in years, that kind of thing. But I go there, and for me, I see people being like a lot of people being more real kind of thing. It's like, and it's kind of sad at the same time because, like,
bit more
yeah, a bit
honest.
more honest with their feelings and emotions, and maybe
Mm.
obviously saying things they wouldn't say, like around what them or other people mean to them. And it kind of, I come from, my dad's side of the family, very, apart from giving each other shit and banter, there's not really anything under the hood spoken about and that kind of thing. And so to see my cousins really open up, and speak in a very real and authentic way is, that's what gets me. So I'll be sitting up the back just crying at a funeral just from seeing that, because I'm the same as you. I'm just kind of watching everyone and interested in their experience and my own.
Yeah, it's revealing, as I said, and it
Yeah.
starts to they will reveal things about themselves. Not only are the circumstances going to reveal unconscious things, but they will start to be more vulnerable and real and authentic in those moments. And I think there's a real beauty in there as well. So yeah, it's amazing how many people are afraid of dying, and when we sort of break it down and work into it, you figure out they're not actually afraid of death. They're afraid of the unknown,
Mm.
or they're afraid of not seeing the people that they love and doing the things they want. So it's and that's one client said, "Well, what were you before you were born?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, once upon a time you weren't here, so in that way you've already been dead." Because then you were born. So you were dead before birth, and then you're going to die again. So,
So you're not constantly worried and anxious about what happened before you were born, but
yeah,
at the other end of the spectrum, we are.
yeah. So you already know it. You just don't know that you know it. So there's nothing really to be afraid of. And when you're dead, you're not going to know it anyway. So you're not going to care.
Yeah, yeah, that's what. Yeah, I say it's like, what are we worried about? It's like I'm either the lights go out, nothing happens. There's no awareness, there's nothing there to experience it, or something else happens. It might be a ball of light, I reincarnate, or whatever it is. I'm like, that's interesting. So something interesting and different happens, or nothing. But I
I
had
mean,
this discussion. I think it was grand final day at a mate's house, and like we'd had quite a few beers and whatnot. But at the end of the day, comes this discussion. Someone brought up about living forever. And I'm like,
oh,
there's
couldn't
no
think of
fucking
anything
way in the
worse.
world. Yeah, I'll live forever. And they're like,
No,
Hass, I'm so surprised about that. You mean you wouldn't want to, wake up next to Melissa and see Tommy every day forever? I'm like, no,
no.
not at all. Do you think, 650 years from now, you're going to wake up with the exact same, like, oh, yeah, hello, dear, hello? No, not at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we're having this really interesting discussion. They couldn't quite wrap their head around that. But I'm like, I'm happy to live and have experiences, but I'm, more
Oh,
than happy to let it all go away.
that's what you sign up for. We all have to live within the law of nature. That everything's impermanent, everything's temporary. So,
Yeah.
um, what's also, I feel like I'm watching. I feel like a voyeur at the moment. I'm just
Yeah, outside
watching.
people's windows again, watching them eat dinner.
I've got to stop that, don't I? I've noticed that
At least put your pants on.
they're just on my head. um, uh, the
What else are you
weather,
watching?
the weather,
Are you
the
still
weather.
going on death or not? Are we changing gears?
No, it's all wrapped up in the same thing. It's just human nature. I'm observing human nature,
Okay.
and it's people understandably go into contraction when they think of death, but you need to do the work around that. But so many people are riding the roller coaster of the weather as well. We didn't have rain for about 5 months up here, and it's just on Facebook, and it's just going into town and chatting with people. And, it's dry. Oh, geez, it's dry at the moment. We're in El Nino or El Dorado or El Paso or something, whatever it's called, the weather thing, and they're all so invested. None of them are farmers, by the way. They're just people who live, and they just it's dry, this and that. I'm like, okay, yep, she's dry, we get it. And then and we're in a drought. We're in a drought. We're not going to get rain for at least 3 years. Okay, rightio. And then a month ago, before we went to Vic, it was I sent you a photo of the fairways in the golf course, and they were scorched, they were brown.
Yeah.
We came back 10 days later, and like the whole golf course had been returfed. It was fluorescent green. It was amazing. It bounced back so quickly. And then everyone's like, just Facebook, oh, how many mils did you get there? Where in this estate? How many mils did you get there? And it's just this it was relentless house. It was relentless, just roller coaster riding, and I can't be around it. It's too unsettling for me. Just the amount of neuroses that they're in. It's just.
And then the communication of the internet, it just puts it in overdrive. It just puts it on steroids, and it goes crazy. And because you might go and talk to people, and a few people in a row are just talking about the weather, and you're like, oh, sick fucking talking about the weather, and you might tell them, that. But then when you once again you go online, and then all of a sudden you just see it times 1,000. It's crazy. I had this experience.
It's common ground. It's common ground for people. So everyone, as you said before, with your cousins, and your uncle, you don't really go below the surface. Everyone's looking for common ground to connect, and then the weather is the one thing that everyone has in common.
And the local sports team.
Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if like, how are you breathing today? We've all got breathing in common. How's gravity today? Geez, you feeling that gravity today?
How's your breath? You shorting in the chest, or you down in that diaphragm? Oh, short in the chest, mate. It's fucking bullshit.
It's been there for months. Oh, God. That's going to be the death of me.
It's never going to change. I'm going to have a heart attack.
With the weather, it was like I haven't had to pull the mower out for 5 months, so it's been great. And now everything's just constant rain for about a week, and now the sun's come out the last 2 days, and bang! I'm like, fuck, yeah, right, here we go. It's mower season, and but there's pros and cons. People, there was a client the other day who said, "Oh, it's shit weather down here." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So explain to me why it's shit. It's windy and it's cold and it's wet. And I'm like, okay. And you hear this in people are like, "Oh, it's terrible. It's this. It's this." It's attachment, aversion, and desire. I want it to be sunny. I don't want it to be raining. And so when we don't get what we do want, we suffer. And when we do get what we don't want, we suffer. So it's raining, raining, raining. And then they haven't wanted it to rain. And then it rains and rains and rains. And then they're like, I want it to be sunny. Then it's sunny, sunny, sunny. And it gets hot, hot, hot. Now I want it to rain. And they're just unhappy with whatever's going on.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate uncontrollable. Like most things are uncontrollable, but the most obvious one,
everything's uncontrollable,
is the weather. I noticed myself getting a little bit too comfortable with things, and so the last couple of months, when I take the dog to the dog park every morning very early, I decided even if it's cold, windy, rainy, number one, I'm going to go, and number two, I'm just wearing my shirt, no beanie or jumper or anything like that, and just fucking go. And you go there and it's perfectly fine, right? And then, but the interesting thing is it always balances out, because if I go there and it is like a bit rainy and it's really fucking cold and whatnot, then I come back into the warm house and I'm like, oh, how good does this feel? So then I get the benefit of that. And so as opposed to just being all comfortable the whole way, I experience a bit of discomfort, then I experience more comfort to a deeper level than before. So if you realize it all balances out at the end of the day, we'd stop giving a fuck, really.
No, they wouldn't. It's they humans, they wouldn't. And this is the human nature of things. Everyone's seeking their comfort zone and warmth and security, and it's so unhealthy. It's detrimental to our growth and our happiness and our everything. We just become dependent on things being a certain way before we can. And people start chasing pleasure instead of actual happiness. Just the human nature. It's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, well, it's then you start going down the hedonistic path where you're just trying to push the pleasure button more and more to the point that it just doesn't work anymore. Which is why I mean,
people.
There you go.
when we tell people to come back to Vic, they're like, "Why? You live in paradise. You live in utopia. It's 28 degrees every day, and the beach and the barrier reef and fishing and four-wheel driving." It's like, that's not reality. Even if I don't go fishing and four-wheel driving and surfing every day,
Yeah,
and even if I
I'm
did,
imagining it's like a montage of Nick and the sun's shining. He's in his four-wheel drive going to fish every day, and there's music on in the background. Like, oh man,
yeah,
it must be great.
yeah, that's Instagram.
Uh,
And but the reality is it's beige. It's the same temperature every day for 5 months. And I'm like, I'd like to, when we went back to Vic, I'm like, I hope it's cold. I want to put a beanie on. I want to put a jacket on. I want to feel something different because this consistency is wearing
that
quite
was
thin now.
when you came back. I think the first day you came down, and we had like our hottest day in months. And you were ready with your bloody hoodies and everything. You're like, what is this? I'm like, hey, everyone's rejoicing. But it wasn't too long until it turned again for you.
So yeah, it's just a you know observation of
It's
how
immediate resistance. It's such an easy place for people to recognize it, be aware of it, and start to work with it. Whereas you wake up in the morning and go, okay, this is
but it's
what is.
outsourcing. It's out, yeah. And so we talk about the reality of what would, could, or should ideally be happening versus the reality of what is happening. And it's outsourcing. We become codependent on things being a certain way in order to feel a certain way, and where we're at the behest of everything. Then, and if we're doing it with the weather, you can bet your last dollar we'll be doing it with people around us or whatever whatever's going on. We're going to be needy. I need this to happen. You may not be saying it that clearly, but the energy will be there.
Lovely use of the word behest, by the way. Let that be known. Very good. And like you said, yeah, that's the underlying energy then. And so, wow, the weather's going to be good. That's okay. Well, my partner's going to act a certain way and that's going to make me okay. Well, I'm not going to have any stresses or anything at work or in life in general, and that'll make me okay. And so we're to pardon my French, we're fucked then. We're just, because everything is going to cause, there's always going to be things that are causing stress and problems in life. That's part of being a human being. And if I have the underlying motivation that, well, once I have no problems, I'll be okay, you'll never arrive, ever arrive.
Imagine waking up and seeing it raining and going, geez, the weather's shit today. You've started. It's a miracle you've even woken up. It's a miracle you're even in existence, and you are safe. You have a house, food, water, shelter, warmth, people around you, loving connections, and you wake up and go, what a fuck day. Jeez, the weather's shit. I mean, this is what I struggle with. It's so deeply irrational. It just doesn't make sense.
It's very deeply irrational. We had a day the other night, and it was so windy here, and it was great because we bought this outdoor setting, and it was so windy that the wind was actually blowing the chairs all across the back decking into the fence. And so me
Yeah.
and Tommy were just watching it. We're like, "Whoa, look at this!" And then I'm like, "Should I go set them back up and see if they blow again?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." So we're sitting there and watching them blow. So it's like you can be in awe of something and
It's
have fun with
so
it,
good.
or you can sit there and go, "Oh, this is bullshit. I can't go out." And I do it from time to time. I do it like I might look at the weather and go, "Oh, I really want to play golf, Savo," but it's not looking like golf weather. So I fall into it. It's one of the things we talk about a lot. It's like you've got to be aware of your thoughts and your patterns and your emotions, so you can bring
Yeah.
yourself back sooner rather than later. And so
And I
it
don't
seems
want
to
to.
be a very automatic response for a lot of people because that's what we saw growing up. I saw my
Yeah.
mum and dad just complaining and going, oh, about little things, the little inconveniences all the time. So we sort of pattern that. So it's up to us to become aware of it and go, oh, I'm just doing that again. Stop wrestling with reality.
I talk to clients about being an active participant in their own human experience, turning up and stop wrestling with reality. Stop trying to manipulate things in accordance to your preference and bias and prejudice and desires and everything. And I don't want to come across as mightier than thou. I'm not, but I've been there and done it in the past for so long and so deeply that being free of it, I still I'm not immune to it, to the human nature. I still have my attachments and still get triggered and still complain and judge and criticize a bit, but worlds away from where I used to. So I know the impact it can have. So and I care about people deeply, and I care. Watching people in suffering is heartbreaking, and it's so unnecessary. It's just
Well, if you saw somebody, if you walked up to someone, they were sitting there headbutting a brick wall, you'd be like, hey, you know that you can stop headbutting the brick wall. You can stop doing that. And it's the exact same thing when we're complaining about the weather or some sort of attachment.
But we can only do that if we liberate ourselves, if we free ourselves, and from those attachments and those desires. And that's the whole thing of this is, people talk about the meaning of life and what is it. And I was chatting with a client the other day, and I said, well, for me, it's just about understanding that I'm an impure entity, and every day is an opportunity to identify those impurities and to let them go. And those impurities are those attachments. So every time I get triggered or altered or distorted or go into suffering or whatever, that's the moment where I go, wow, okay, I didn't even know I had that attachment, but it's here, and so I'm gonna let it go and surrender that pretty quick. And we talk about a lot doing the work, and there's maybe that's another episode. I've got a big list on the whiteboard about things we can do in terms under the umbrella of doing the work. And one of them is allow things to exist. It seems so funny to say, but give this permission to exist. Allow it to be raining. Allow it to be sunny. Allow it to be windy. Allow it to be whatever it is. Instead of thinking it should or shouldn't be happening, allow it to exist and see what happens. And clients are reporting back that life was a little bit easier and a bit more pleasant.
And the weather, once again, is such a good place to start, because ideally we need to be in acceptance that there's war, and there's people that perform horrible acts, and we don't condone that, and so that's where there's a difference. We don't have to condone it and support it and go, yeah, this is great, but we have to be willing to accept that it exists.
And if everything's on the spectrum, if you only desire the pleasant end of the spectrum and are only allowing the pleasant end of the spectrum to exist, it's going to put you in a real unhealthy situation. So it's going to transcend the ego and what it desires and what it would prefer, and open those parameters of acceptance up to encase the whole spectrum. And it's inconvenient, it's challenging, it's sad, it's horrific, it's all of those things. But underneath that or behind that, it needs to be allowed to exist, because it's all there. Imagine if it didn't exist. Imagine if there was only that end of the spectrum and there was only sunshine and rainbow farts. It would just be, you'd be bored as batshit.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's even a reality that can be imagined, because it's so outside of the realm of this reality that we live in. It's like the analogy I like is the magnet. It's like there's a magnet which has a positive and a negative end, and then people sit there and go, well, I like the positive end of the magnet, but I don't really like the negative one. And so they go and they cut it in half, hoping to just get a positive half. But as soon as you cut it in half, you have two magnets with a positive and a negative pole, and you can keep cutting that thing as many times as you want. You're never going to get a one-sided life. And so, we might be having a conflict with our partner and say, well, this shouldn't exist. Or maybe our son's at school and we've got a call from the principal saying, hey, we've found drugs or something in his locker. Oh, well, this shouldn't exist. And you're automatically going to get stuck in your ego and resisting what's happening. Whereas it's like, does an argument with your partner exist in the realms of this world? It's like, well, yeah, it seems to happen. But when we're in it, we're like, nah, shouldn't be happening.
That's something that we teach clients, is to ask themselves, is it outside the realms of possibility or probability that this will be occurring?
Yeah.
And when the answer is no, it's not outside. This is going to happen, then that helps them into that acceptance of it. client yesterday was saying that they started to feel themselves raging because they were driving back down a road and they couldn't overtake this car that was doing 15 k's under the speed limit. And I was like, what a beautiful opportunity. And that's revealing, the human nature is I must get what I want, must be loved and liked, and must live in utopia where everything's perfect. And that's in accordance with what the ego wants. So when things happen that we don't get what we want, or people don't say nice things about us, or we don't get every green light, or every car on the road isn't driving at the exact same speed as we're driving, it's an opportunity, and it's gonna trigger that nature. So I said, "What happened?" And she goes, "Yeah, I just felt this," and I was like, "Yeah," and I was gonna get really, And before I road rage, I just went, "No, actually, I'll just call someone. I'll call, speak to my family." I'm like, "Well, that's nice avoidance. But you've avoided doing the work there. You've sort of skipped class because." You started noticing this, and all you've done is divert your awareness from the source of stimulus, the person driving slowly. You've distracted the mind with something else. So great, yeah, you didn't go into road rage, but there's another step that you can take, which is to sit there with it and do the work around it. And she's like, "Oh," so we unpacked that, and I said, we've got to lead with wonder, not with intellect, and be curious. And when something like that occurs, we're all just walking each other home. So she couldn't walk this. It turned out to be a little old lady driving the car. She couldn't walk her home. I said, "What if this woman had a car crash 10 years ago and lost her husband, and this was the first time she was out driving? What if this was an act of bravery and the most courageous thing this woman had done in years, and she's absolutely white knuckling it and petrified, but she's pushing through this discomfort, and all the memories of her husband are coming flooding back, and she's absolutely nailing it, and there's a woman in the car behind her yelling at her. Like, we don't know. The source of suffering is attachment. I prefer this to be different, and ignorance. We've got no idea what's going on within that car and what's happening. But they could be having a heart attack and trying to drive themselves to hospital, and they're going to go 35k an hour. And when you sit back and create that space and open up all of that by letting go of your attachments, it puts you in a uniquely different position and creates a completely different experience for yourself. And I said, and you can be celebrating that woman now. You can still not know what's going on, but if you're going to imagine anything, maybe imagine something wonderful and imagine that and start celebrating her and create this illusion in your head if you really want to let the imagination go wild. And go, girlfriend, be supportive of this woman and apply positive meaning to it instead of applying negative meaning if you want to do that.
Yeah, well, if you're going to create an illusion anyway, why not make it a positive one? As opposed to a negative.
The reality is, car is going slowly, and you can sit there and you can just use that as an opportunity to notice what comes up within you and its resistance, and so you can spend the drive home. You can have a 15-minute meditation. That would be an opportunity to meditate on that and not close your eyes and crash, but it's an active meditation where you're noticing the attachment forming, the desire, the tightening, the contraction, the heat, and everything, and then and I'm going to let this go, and I'm going to let this go, and allow it to exist. So you can do the work, or let the mind run free, but let it play nicely.
Yeah, let's see. A perfect example of stepping into being the active participant in your own human experience, where you just say, you have disturbance, and disturbance is like it sucks you in. So most people just become the disturbance and play out their reactions. But in that moment, you can step back and just go, "Oh, this is me feeling rage, having these thoughts about the person in front." So now you're in a relationship with your experience. Yeah. You're not just tied. You're not now in a relationship to the other person causing rage, or supposedly. You're in a relationship with yourself. And so the rest of the drive can be noticing, like you said, your own reactions, noticing what rage feels like, what it wants to do and say to that person, then laughing at how bloody irrational that is. And what the example you gave so great, like how many times I've had this before, where you feel that anger and everything on the road, and then you pull up next to the person ready to give him a glare, then you see it's like a really old person, or maybe you didn't see the L, but it's an L plate of learning. And that rage and anger goes away immediately when you see that, which tells you how valid the rage and anger was in the first place. You're like, oh, shit, poor thing. Or someone's taken their pregnant wife to the hospital or something, and you're like, oh, God, let me help you. I'll form a line behind you, It's so funny.
The ego sees that, and the ego goes shriveling
it goes,
back into its cave.
Yeah,
and it's really embarrassed. It's like
tail between its legs.
Oh God, I fucked that one up. Oh God, and then we create more suffering. Then we go into a sense of guilt, and we start beating ourselves up or feeling horrible because we've treated these people poorly, and we compound it, and that's all unnecessary.
It's so unnecessary. But then we might, in that, if we were being the active participant, we'd go, oh, the ego was completely and utterly wrong, right? But then on the drive home half an hour later, it'll do the exact same reaction if the same thing happens. Yeah. And we should ideally then go, oh, there's the ego again. What's it getting angry at this time? Yeah, the relationship. But we don't. We get sucked in again.
Let's play a game, all right? Close your eyes. And if you're listening at home, you can do this too. If you're driving, please don't do this. All right. So imagine you have access to all of the entities and parts available within you.
Ooh. Okay.
And I just want you to offer this and just sit there and just notice what the response is. Just repeat this with your internal voice. Ego, by what name may I call you? Just release that and just see what comes back. And if a name is revealed to you, let me know the name.
Let's get like a bit of snarling.
Okay, so just keep going. By ego, by what name may I call you?
Brian.
Brian, great. All right, open your eyes. It's so interesting how many of my female clients have had male ego names and vice versa. Not everyone, but it's yeah. So, and some aren't even human names. They're quite out there, and it doesn't matter. The name doesn't matter. So, Brian. So, what we've done is we've created. Mine's called Dude. So it's just like, come on, dude, really? Yeah. And so when you notice the ego's being activated and it's having a tantrum and it's not getting what it wants, and not living in utopia, you're in a position now to speak to it and go, Brian, is this really necessary, mate? Is this what we do? Is this aligned with how we want to operate? We've got a way of being where we want to walk everyone home, compassionate, loving kindness. That's the way we're rolling. You're not sort of on board with that at the moment. Whatever the conversation is.
Yeah. Are you seeing reality here, Brian? Is that really what's happening?
Yeah.
That's what I say. I don't use the word Brian, but sometimes I'll just say to myself, like, is that really what's happening? Because normally the voice would be completely crazy. Yeah, go.
So Brian could be your caddy at golf. So when you're at golf and you are hitting poor shots and fucking smash a club on the ground or whatever, it's that's Brian. You can go, Brian, can you just leave me to play, please? Brian, hand me the club back. It's a great way of creating objectivity. It creates a bit of separation and gives us room to do the work.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's the same theme that we're talking about, creating a relationship, creating an awareness of this part, not being this part completely and utterly.
And you said before, Brian, what's the reality? Is this reality or what's the reality? And so getting into the reality of what is on the doing the work list. I had a morning the other day where before I'd even gotten up, I felt like I'd done a workout. So the M had gotten up really early. I hadn't slept, and so I heard her getting up. So I was in that sort of space between waking and sleeping. And then I'm like, oh, what else is going on? And then I noticed it was really bright. I could see a little light through my eyelids. And so I sort of opened my eyes and like, oh, the blind on the window is about 6 inches open. It hasn't closed all the way. And that's on M's side of the bed. The responsibility for that is over there. So I hear the dude go, oh, M didn't close the window. Oh, M didn't close the blind properly. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Here
Here
we
he is.
go.
Hey, dude.
It's happening. I'm like, he's up and about early this morning. And then next thing you hear these frogs in the tank. We had an empty water tank outside our window. And it's just like they're on megaphones. It's like AC/DC amps turn up to 11. It's just, rah, rah. And I'm like, why is it so loud? And I have my eyes in and look, and the window's been left open about 6 inches. And I'm like, okay. And the dude's there again. Oh, she's left the window open and she's left the blind open. And it's starting to get some momentum. It's starting to get riled
Oh,
up.
it's
And I'm like,
building up a list.
yeah. And I'm like, calm your farm, dude. It's just reality is windows open. Reality is blinds open. There's no problem here. And then all of a sudden I heard this noise. I'm like, what's that noise? And it's Em sitting out in the kitchen watching a seminar of a course that she's doing. And my ego's like, oh, come on now, this is just ridiculous. Well, how loud does she want it? Is she deaf? And I'm sitting there listening to this creature that's starting to try and have the time. I'm like, dude, stop. And I really had to intervene because it was trying to get out of it. And it was all based on it wasn't getting what it wanted. It wanted to still be asleep. It wanted perfect sleeping conditions with no light and no noise, and it wasn't getting that because that's not reality at the time. So these parallel universes, I could have gotten up in a very distorted state and in a lot of suffering, and then gone looking for the person who I deemed responsible for my suffering and projected that all of that onto this. Yeah,
Oh.
fuck it, right there. Is that loud enough? And blah
Because
blah blah.
they were doing it on purpose because they don't care
Yeah,
about
they
you.
did this to me. They did this to
Yeah.
me, and that
Yeah.
means they don't love me and they're not
Don't care
considerate.
about you. There's an
And
imbalance.
so,
You do so much for
yeah,
them. Here's a list of all the things I've done for you in the last week.
should I even be with this person? It's
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
It's all. It's so horrible. It's so
Yeah.
horrible. And think of it
Dude,
how what we're doing to ourselves. You know that's what we're doing to
we're
ourselves.
headbutting the brick wall.
And we
That's
are.
exactly what we're
And
doing.
and so and imagine the rest of the day how that would have unfolded. There's contraction. It's me versus you. It's conflict. It's having a tantrum. But thankfully, I turned up. I was present. I did the work, and so by the time I got up, I went out there, kissed her on the head. Hey, hon, how are you? What are you watching? And I was. You can't give away that which you don't possess. So because I'd cultivated happiness and peace within myself, that's what I can then go out and offer to the world. And so I offered happiness to him, and I'm stoked you're watching this, son. It's early and it's loud. Maybe we could use some headphones next time or something. But I was really I loved that she was bettering herself and doing that stuff, and made her a cuppa, and yeah, the day went on. So, but if I miss that chance, then I'm going to be in that state most of the day, and everything is going to easily affect me and keep triggering me. So by the time I go to bed that night, I'm just going to be
Yeah,
the
yeah.
chemical.
Plus, you'll be affecting the chemicals of her or whoever else you're around because
Totally.
we'll start conflict, which will then start the other
Yeah.
person, and then all of a sudden, yeah, we go to bed just so tight.
So I had a client in the UK at 7 that morning. So this was all happening at like 5 o'clock, 5
Yeah.
a.m. And as I said, by the time I got up, I felt like I'd had a workout. I was going, cool down a bit. And so I had this client, and so I modeled in that session what I did that morning, just used it to help someone else. And at the end of the session, I said, so, and he's hilarious. He goes, oh, I thought you as this practitioner and founder of Myndfit, I thought none of that would happen for you. I didn't think, what, you think I'd live in utopia? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. I like butterflies and everything around me in the morning, and I just wake up in this euphoric state. And he's like, yeah, that's not how it works, buddy. And so I said, because when I tell stories like that, I know what happens is that people start inserting themselves into it and start applying it to their lives. And yep, I've done that, and they'll make these associations. And he did that, and I said, so have you got anything similar? He's like, it's exactly the same as my morning. My baby was crying during the night and kept us awake. My toddler peed the bed. My missus woke up real grumpy and just kept having a go at me. And then I got out to the kitchen and someone had left the fridge door open all night. And I just lost it. And slammed the fridge and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, so there's 4 sources of stimulus there and you didn't turn up for them. And so by the time you got to the fridge, you were in no position to self-manage or self-regulate. And he's like, yeah, fuck. I said, so what was the reality in the kitchen? And he's like, well, someone left the fridge door open. I'm like, no, what was the reality? He's like, yeah, someone left it. No,
The fridge door was open.
And his ego took a couple of minutes to get there. And finally he surrendered. He's like, the fridge door was open.
Yeah.
I'm like, right. And I'm like, what can you do? The constructive thinking, what can you do? And he's like, and it was so interesting to watch. It was this battle, it was this inner conflict, and his ego's going, don't you fucking say it, don't you fucking say it. And he's like, I said, what can you do? He's like, close the fridge. And then I just sat there and watched him, and I just saw it come up, and he's like, it's so fucking simple, isn't it? And I'm like, it is. It's almost too simple for people. The reality of it is, it's almost too simple because we're so conditioned to conflict and drama and heightened this, and that means that. And if you offer to someone that all it is the window is open, the blind is open, the fridge door is open, what can you do? Close it. Close it. The dishes are left out. Do the dishes or leave the dishes. That's your options at that time. So yeah, it was just a fun morning for me. And then I took it into the session and had a great experience of it with a client. And just the Hippocrates said, before you can heal a person, ask them if they're willing to give up that which is making them ill to begin with. So with my client, illness is suffering, and what he had to surrender or let go was his attachments, and his ego was right in the pocket, man. It was
didn't want to let go.
And it takes more strength to let go than it takes to hold on. And it's
yeah, well, I think it's a great example of how we're just the ultimate overcomplicators of things. That's why it's hard. All of this stuff you're talking about is simplifying, because we have this bloody prefrontal cortex and all that, which is great because we can plan for the future and work in groups and learn from the past. But at the same time, it overcomplicates everything. Everything.
Reality is rain is falling from the sky. Oh, okay. That's as far as it needs to go.
I'm not okay with that. And these are the reasons why.
That's far, and this is what that means, and this is how terrible and doomy and gloomy it all is.
Oh, I can't do this, and it always rains here. Why was the bloody weatherman wrong? He should have been right. God, they're terrible.
I don't know how we've made it this far, man. I don't know how we've made it as a race.
We're just neurotic monkeys. I don't know how we've done it. We made bombs and weapons. That helped.
Yeah. Make love, not war, man. We've made it this far because there's a counter to it all. All the bombs and weapons, there's a counter to it. There's an opposite end of the spectrum to that, and so it's all as it's meant to be. It's all in balance. It's all perfect.
Yeah, bloody beautiful. What a great place to finish. Attachments. This episode is all about. Notice your attachments. And even if you just want to notice for a couple of days and don't do anything about it, but just notice. Awareness is so powerful. Watch yourself get angry. Watch yourself get upset. Watch yourself get frustrated. And then once you're watching, once you're watching, then you've got an opportunity to go, you know what? I'm kind of sick of getting angry at the weather. I'm kind of sick of it dictating my emotional state when I can't control it in any way.
Name your ego, and then you're in a position where you can see it as a different entity. It's separate to you. And then we don't want to get rid of the ego. It's important to have an ego, but when you are separate from it, you can then start working with it to create a healthier ego, which creates a healthier relationship with the ego. So
yeah, it's just something in existence that we can pay attention to. And it's okay to pay attention to it, but human beings pay attention to it way too much. I was doing some breath work before.
Too much analysis to it.
Yeah, I was doing some breath work before, and it's really nice when you're doing like the breath hold, and I just pay attention to the sounds happening, and so I can hear. What are you laughing at?
Breath work. We're breathing every moment of
Yeah,
every
yeah, but
day.
you know what I mean. There's a particular technique,
It's funny that we've called it breath
It is
work.
funny. It is funny. I know.
Got to work on my breath today.
And it's like I just paying attention to the sounds. I heard some birds. I heard the wind rustling things a little bit, and your awareness is paying attention and focusing on that which in the moment. And then the mind creeps back in, and it's like, oh, gee, what are we doing? So I got the podcast with Nick, then I'm going out to do that. And so the trap is, and I know because I spent most of my life there, is that 99% of the time, all that we're gluing our awareness to is just the ego and the thoughts in the mind, when there's so many more other dimensions of experience out there to be explored, that it's kind of sad that most people spend most of their time just focusing on this thing.
Yeah, there's so much that we miss. We miss the little smile on that person. I love sitting there watching Em. She's going about her thing, and I'll just sit there and just observe her, and it's like, wow, and that line on her face there, and the way she moves that, and I'm just like, my heart's just exploding, and it's just, it's just like, just what a creature, what a creature.
Yeah.
And that's not only when she's doing things that I prefer her to or I like her doing. That's when she's being neurotic or she's tired or she's whatever. I need to equally sit there and just have the same experience with whatever she's doing.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Nick.
We've got a golf trip planned before Christmas. So there's going to be an opportunity there for Brian to, it's going to form an attachment. I want this piss missile 300 meters down the middle of the fairway. When it goes 300 meters over the next fairway,
let's not make an assumption that that's going to happen.
There's a chance that you can go, the reality is ball is over there instead of there.
Yeah. All right, Brian and Dude, we're going to work with them. So there's a golf trip. Ryan, Nico, Brian, and Dude.
We're a four ball.
We'll have to book two bedroom apartments.
We will. It's going to be great.
Actually, my ego probably wants some sort of mansion or penthouse or something. Brian's got expensive taste.
That's funny, man. All right. Well, good chat.
All right. See you, everyone. See you next time. See you next week when we have a guest. We have a guest next week.
Oh, yeah, we do have a guest. Yeah,
we haven't had a guest in a while, so I'm looking forward to that. Who have we got? Let's give a little teaser.
We have Tony coming on board. Tony reached out to us after the mental health charities, what are they good for podcast episode. And Tony's down in Geelong and works within that field and has a really interesting take and perspective on things from inside the circle. So, it'd be great to have him on and to talk about the system and what it does and how it goes about things.
Good. I can't wait. All right, everyone. See you next week with Big Tone.